If somebody was like myself, because you've known me for a few years, so if you were to look at me and from hanging out, what would your impression be? Would it be, wow, she suffers from depression or anxiety?
Not at all. No way. I first met you at that, it was the Silkies Rock, right? Um, and just talking to you for even a little bit, like I saw how driven you were and just how ambitious you were. And that, I've always thought of you as um, just a very independent go-getter, if that makes sense.
Do you think most people, do you think you'd be able to tell if most people, if you looked at somebody, would you be able to think, wow, they look like, quote unquote, a crazy person?
No way. I think that's something that we have in like movies and stuff, where we've kind of come up with this picture. However, I have friends and stuff that suffer from depression, other mental illness, and I think uh, it's always the ones that you wouldn't suspect because uh, they've come so accustomed to having to put on a different face, like to fit in. So they don't have that stigma because there's such a stigma on like someone being ill, that they can't just be like, I suffer from depression. They have to go beyond that and, act extra happy and act extra, confident to overcompensate, if you will.
And that's just you. And do you think that's something that they just have learned to live because they're afraid to say anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because, of to just kind of help them keep from the ridicule and stuff that they would suffer from. Um, because it's when someone says that they're sick, if they say that they suffer from cancer, they've got some other illness, everybody's in their corner. But if you say that you have a mental illness for some reason in this country in particular, it's seen as almost like, I don't know, it seems like people kind of push you away, like there's
Right.
something wrong with you, like, that's not the case. It's just like any other sickness. They need help and they need to be healed.
So one thing that I've learned while working with many is things such as, they're crazy. People are crazy. Do you think that still remains in the back of people's mind, or do you think that'll ever be changed in any way, or do you think it'll just always be there?
I, you know, as an optimist, I think it will change. I think people are now coming to terms with the fact that, we all have some kind of illness. There's something wrong with us, but that doesn't like mean that we should just be thrown away, you know?
Right.
But it's just right now with our country's inability to address those issues and really fix anything or react to anything. It kind of does kind of seem hopeless right now. But I think as more of these issues are brought to light and more people are, bringing them up and holding, the government responsible and saying, hey, we need to fix this. We need to put better things in place. I think in the future, I think it'll be better. But as of right now, yeah, I think there's really that stigma, and it also keeps people from wanting to seek help. It keeps people from wanting to admit that they need help. It's bad right now, but I think it'll be better.
See, in my mind, I'm hoping it'll be better for my kids
Yes.
more than anything. I don't want them to think that, they can't talk about any of this. I feel a lot of people can't handle or they can't talk about it because they grew up with, you can't, I don't know how you would say it. I guess it would be, you can't shame this family. You can't.
Yeah.
And so it was never fair for those who, let's just say, are now in my generation. And, here I am going to be 37 and I'm trying to let people know that it's okay to tell people I don't feel good.
Right.
And it is. But when you have parents that are older and grew up in the mindset of, no, that never happened, or sweep it under the rug, it doesn't give doesn't give them a chance. And so it's just not fair.
And I think that's another thing too is, beforehand, when people, and still we don't really understand it because we haven't really done our research. But I think before it was very much like it's your parents' fault.
Right.
So then of course the parents are like, I didn't do anything wrong, so you can't be sick.
Right.
And so it was this horrible thing where either the children didn't want to speak up because they didn't want to shame their parents, or they spoke up and their parents didn't want to believe it because, then it shamed them.
Right.
So, and none of that's, obviously true. Sometimes people they're just sick and it just happens, but that doesn't mean that it can't be addressed and can't be, helped. It's an impediment, but it's not something that, stops you from being able to be you.
Right. I mean, being a vet, well, not a vet, I take that back. You're still active. Have you experienced many around you that haven't been able to, handle certain things around them, handle life in general? I
So
mean,
many.
These are, men and women who have, experienced things that I can't even imagine. And I would think that, that could definitely change somebody forever. And do you think that alone could definitely put their mind into a very different, draw them to be, how do you say, isolate themselves because they don't know how to deal, or they don't know how to talk about what's happening. They just kind of hide it because they're not going to go and get what they need from the resources that, even though limited, they'll never go in there to get what they need.
Yeah, I think, especially when you dive into, the military and veterans, especially like war veterans, we already talked about like kind of the stigma that's in, normal civilian. But then top that off with, you're a soldier, like you're supposed to be tough. Nothing's supposed to hurt you, and then they go to war and they see their friends to their left and right, like, die. And you've got just trauma from that. And then also, you've heard of survivor's guilt and all that. And they don't want to really come to terms with that because they feel like they're weaker, and they think everybody else will think they're weaker if they need help. So a lot of times it's that self-medication. We see a lot of alcoholism in the military, of course. And I think a lot of that is because, they just don't want to seek help. So they're just numbing it the way they can, what they have at their hands at the time. But, Yeah, I know friends that I was walking with a friend and we were crossing a yard and he stepped on a Gatorade cap and it popped up. Just the way he stepped on it, it popped up and he just froze in terror. And it sounded like to him, it sounded like a like he had flipped off like a anti-personnel mine or something, because he was a combat engineer in the Army for so long. The same one also like froze when he saw it was a simple sprinkler, the sprinkler stuck in the grass, and he just froze because it looked like it was like a mine emplacement or something. And he just continued living his life. He drank a lot, but he never really like came to terms with the issues that obviously were very deep seated.
Did he ever seek help?
No. And, I've tried to look him up because I think the last time I saw him was probably 6 years ago. So I've tried to look him up and I haven't been able to find him. And I wonder about him sometimes.
Do you think so where do you think if you could guess, where do you think he would be? Or what do you think he would be doing?
I don't know. I know he drank so much vodka that his wife made him get the plastic bottle one, the like cheap $10 gallon, because he drank so much. But he, and I didn't think of it at the time, but I really think it was because of that. He just had so much trauma. He was just trying to drown it out. I don't know where he would be right now. I know he had a son and he was married. And I want to say he was in North Carolina originally. He was a good guy, but he just, he was facing so much and he always joked about it. I think that's something we do in the military a lot. Like whatever our pain is, we joke about it and it makes us feel a little better.
Right, but on the inside, you guys hurt, obviously, more than if I was. I mean, I have no idea of what you guys have gone through, and I have so much respect, but at the same time, I feel, there definitely need to be more resources for you guys just to cope, just to get through every day, because that's something we definitely don't have for you guys. And a lot of people, I hear all the time, people who come home and they have to be talked about killing themselves more than one time, and they don't want to go to groups. They don't want, to do all these things. They don't want to expose, a weakness. That's how they look at it, being weak.
Yeah.
But here we all are, I don't want to say judging, but we're not doing anything to really help the situation. There's not enough. Is basically what we get to look forward to. It's just there not being enough. What about your kids? What do you expect from your kids or for them?
Man, I want them to be able to express themselves and not be afraid to, really speak about, if they're uncomfortable, I want them to be able to speak about it and not worry about it. At least I'm there, but even when I'm gone, I want them to be in a society that will like accept it if they're not, quote unquote, like perfect,
Right. What do your kids know about right now? As far as mental illnesses.
I don't know if they really. I've tried to kind of implant this understanding that everybody's different. So, whenever, my hope is whenever they meet somebody that they have no preconceived notions of what this person should be, and accept people for who they are, and also for them to understand their boundaries too and what they feel. But not to be like, you know, uh, you're a boy, so you should have short hair. You're a girl, so you should have long hair.
Right.
You should want to play with trucks because you're a boy and stuff like that. So I try to instill that in them, that openness of, people like what they like and they don't like what they don't like.
Right, right. And that's okay.
Right. And people feel what they want to feel, or, they feel what they feel.
Right. So say your son or daughter, because, there is no one age that, suicide, mental health, none of that affects. So say they come home, they isolate themselves, they're afraid to tell you what happened that day at school, but then, they come out, they feel different, they feel like they can talk to you, and it has something to do with, in so many words, they want to kill themselves. How do you react to that?
That's a very tough question. But, I would just tell them not only that they are loved, but also that whatever is happening now is not permanent. And that I'm there for them to help them with, whatever they need to get them through today. I actually had it's kind of like a big family, I don't know. I had an uncle who was 15, committed suicide. My brother was like 4, so I was just a baby, and my brother loved him. Like every time we would go over to my grandma's house, my brother would go look for my uncle, and they would play forever. And one day, only 15, he committed suicide, and my brother looked for him one day, and he wasn't there. And I just always think of that, like, when you're gone, there's people still looking for you. There's people left behind. And, you don't have to live with it anymore, but people are going to live with it for the rest of their lives.
I was told by one of my doctors, and it will never leave my mind. And maybe with that story you just told me, it might ring truth, but she told me, especially when you're younger and if it's a family member, you never recover.
Yeah.
Do you think your brother will forever feel like that?
Yeah. And I've told you before, like, so my brother suffers from depression, and he's also schizophrenic. And I think part of that is that early trauma of losing someone he was so attached to, and he was so vulnerable at that age, and just like all of a sudden that person was gone, and they were gone because they chose to be gone. I think that hurt him a lot, and that I think that went into a lot of his future choices. That early trauma can be very, very devastating because it's right there in the roots of who you are. And
right.
I don't think he ever recovered.
Does he still talk about him today?
No.
So it's an untouched.
Yeah, it's one
subject.
Of those. Yeah.
How do you think in the future, maybe I've been asked many times while doing some of these interviews, do people tell me about how hard it is with social media? Do you think your kids will suffer from the effects of what social media will bring to them? Or
I wonder, because I think those growing up in it, I think it'll be easier for them. I think there was that weird time period where we were used to people telling us stuff to our face. And, when you're telling someone off to their face, you're going to hold back a little bit because, you're within punching distance. Right? But in social media, you can just like post this thing and then just go take a nap and not even have to worry about it. You can say these mean, horrible things. So that was kind of new to our generation a lot. But I think those coming up right now, my 7-year-old daughter and my 5-year-old son, I think they'll be better equipped for that kind of scenario. I'm hoping.
See, a young one that I interviewed, she told me on the opposite side of the spectrum that what happened with her was social media, it felt like it followed her home. Oh. So she could never get away from it,
Yeah.
Being bullied, being, just having people treat you like that. It's almost like it invites everybody to do it, too. To join in and, treat you like that. How that one person, just because they don't like you, and, I'm sure you've told, I've told you that's happened to me many times. And, it's like the more heart you give to people and the more generous you are, the more you're affected by it, I feel. And don't get me wrong, not everybody, but then at the same time, I feel as if, I just feel like you're more vulnerable because you put yourself out there, and for good reason, and to be helpful. But then again, it's almost like you're giving them an excuse to do that to you. It's okay to do that, because it's like...
Because you put something up there, they just think that they have the right to... Yeah.
And so it's, what do? You're teaching your kids to be good people, and then here they are struggling to be good people.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and that I see a lot of, because even as adults, it's like, what, I feel like it never goes away, just because, people are always mean. You're never going to get away from that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, how do we handle it these days?
Yeah.
Do we get to be mean back? Do we teach our kids, hey, be mean back, or, what exactly do you tell them?
Yeah. Man. Yeah, and it's hard because you think like it's like Facebook and stuff and you could just not look at it, but then you're always thinking like, because they, it can go across like to so many other people. And, beforehand it was like, when someone told you off in the quad of your school, it was only the other people who were around that heard it, right? And maybe, there were some whispers, but it always stood in that school. But now it could be like everybody.
Right. International.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
And, so I see people who are, are just like, why are people so mean? And, it's like, we're adults. And if you're asking why somebody's so mean as an adult, it's scary. It's like, what are we setting our kids up for?
Yeah.
I want them, my goal is to have them feel safe. Yeah. And how am I going to keep them safe if, if it's happening to me?
Yeah. And it's so much meaner too. The comments are so much meaner, like I said, because, in person's different. I remember reading something a long time ago, and it was about the difference between, how people change when they have road rage.
Right.
Because they feel so safe in their car. Like they're almost like at their house, like yelling at someone from far away. So it's kind of the same way. It's like, you can say whatever because you're in the safety. You feel so safe and secure in your own home that you can say the meanest things.
Right.
So, man.
And I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like a lot of people just definitely don't know when to stop.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And, you know, I'm not saying it was any better for like my generation, but it's like,
I think we can say our generation.
yeah.
We're about the same age.
We're about the same.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was one of those things where, you know, I don't know. I just felt like you have a problem with me. You know, you talk shit to someone's face.
Yeah.
You get off the bus.
Yeah.
You go whoop their ass.
Yeah. I'll meet you by the flagpole.
Yeah. And then, you know, it's like, then all of a sudden, most of the time it's resolved.
Yeah.
If not, you know, there's a round 2.
Yes. Yes. That used to be the thing. After you fought with somebody, all of a sudden they would become your best friend.
Yeah. And it's almost like, you know, you settled it and then come to find out it was like, oh, your friend came to me and said this, or oh,
yeah,
you know, but it's like,
yep.
But you know, now in the comments and stuff, it's like, you know, people just go on and on and on,
yes.
and there is no end to it. And then it's like that post then shows up on, you know, 2-3 weeks later, and then it's like all over again. People are like, because they see it for the first time, and then they're like, oh, like, you know.
And then you have to relive it.
Yes. And it's just like, you know, because it's not like you can delete something that somebody else, you know, wrote on their page about you. And it's like, really? I mean, really, like, we're doing this again?
You know what I love? Have you seen the, like celebrities respond to mean like comments?
Oh, yes.
Oh my goodness, that's so awesome. Because then it really puts it into perspective. Guys, everybody has some haters. Like everybody does. It doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
Like you could be, you know, they've got like you know, it could be Chris Pratt or whatever. And someone's gotta hate him. So
for no reason.
Yeah, for no reason.
At all.
Yeah, and I think that really puts it in perspective, and I love whoever came up with that idea because it's amazing.
And it's really awesome because, you know, everybody, you know, after Endgame came out, you know, for, you know, the Avengers, you know, everyone's like, oh my gosh, you know, Robert Downey this and Robert Downey. And I'm like, I remember the day he went to rehab.
Yes.
I mean... And
I remember when it was back to back to back, and I remember my grandpa saying, well, if he doesn't get well this time, he's never going to get well.
Right.
And he got well.
Right. And then it's like, look at him.
Yes.
You know, and
one of my favorite comeback stories, like 100%, one of my favorite comeback stories.
And it's so crazy because they live the hardest life. And to me, it's like, you know, give them one, they live the hardest life because it's so public.
Yeah.
But then
everything they do.
And it's sad because then it's not only public, it's, you know, it involves their families.
Yes.
It involves, you know, and here they're innocent kids and people are wondering like, why are they assholes? Or, you know, why did they, you know, do that? Or why did they, but then it's like, how would you feel if your kids are, you know, part of this hate club for somebody who, I mean, and they're really awesome, generous people. They're not bad. And
but they're held to like this unattainable standard. It's awful.
Right. And I just like, you know, for people, it was just, they looked, like I told somebody, it doesn't matter how many good things I've ever done for people. That one thing that was shitty that I did, that's what they remember.
And 100%.
It's not fair, but at the same time, you got to learn to live with it.
Yeah.
So it's just constantly reminding people like, hey, it's bad right now. It really is, but hang in there, you know. And a lot of people that can't, you know, to those that put them in that position, it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like F off, and a lot of these people are good people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm so glad that I remind my kids every day, like, hey, we don't know what they're going through.
Yeah. Everybody has their own battles. They have their own demons. Everybody's struggling with something. No matter how bright their smile is, everybody's struggling with something.
Yeah. And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's 100% okay.
We have to like learn that as, like as people, that's a normal thing that we go through.
Right.
That we don't have to pretend that we're happy all the time. When someone says, so how's it going? Like, we don't always have to say, oh, everything's okay. Like,
right. Right. And you know
know?
what? I mean, I find people kind of like stepping on eggshells when they talk to me and they're like, how are you doing? And I'm like, good. I'm recovering well. I'm finding, but
Yeah.
it's so hard for even really good friends of mine to even just picture that I was in that position. And I tell people, hey, we all have a bad day.
Yeah.
Mine just happened to be October 25th, and I'm not scared to tell people. And, it's like.
And we need more people like you that can speak up like that. And then once enough people speak up, I think it will be normal,
Right.
and people won't be so afraid of it.
Right. And I tell people, I had a meeting with an organization here in Austin, and it was to do just this. And they told me that I shouldn't do it because it's a form of offering therapy, and I'm not qualified for that. And I said, no, it's a form of people having a voice who don't have to talk to doctors because they don't want to.
Yeah. So here's my question to you is, what actually sparked you to come up with this? Because I think this is a fantastic idea, a fantastic forum.
Well, so about 2 years ago, I wanted, ever since I was young, even though I had a really, I know told you, had a really, really rough childhood. And so I would always think, even as a kid, and it kind of sounds crazy, but I would always think, I'm here for something. I don't know what. And I believe that. So as I was growing up, like I was doing all these, things, just trying to find myself, I guess. Right. And, and so what happened was I, just decided to go sign up for cosmetology school, and, fast forward to 10 years later, and it's like, I want to do a documentary. I woke up and just said, I want to do a documentary.
Awesome.
And then, but then at the same time, it's like, what kind did I want to do? Well, being as, pretty successful at this, I love to do it. I've never had to hand out business cards. And so it made it, pretty exciting to me. And so how I looked at it was, I'm going to just do this and incorporate it into going all over and making people happy.
Awesome.
And so to me, because I love doing hair, I can't get over it. It was just handed to me, and I loved every bit of it. And so, just today, my son said, would you rather have no arms or no legs? And I said, I absolutely would die if I had no arms.
Because that's your life, yeah.
And so that happened. But one day I woke up, and I wasn't myself, and I found myself, in this, in 72 hours. And I put all that stuff on hold 2 years ago. And I woke up and I was in this facility with 18 other people who wanted to end their life. And when I got out, I walked out and I said, this is my purpose. And so here I am. I want everybody to know that, your story, my story, the next person's story is, it just takes one person to spread that word and to let people know that it's going to be okay. And that's why we're here. And I cannot thank you enough. You're awesome. Oh, I always cry just because I appreciate just all of this, and
So
you
cool.
know, and to incorporate something I love, and you know, it just means a lot to me. So thank you,
Thank
my
you.
beautiful
Thank you so
friend.
much.